have a lot of material.
Oh, come on. All right, well, I'm back, and I'm here with another tour, another visit, and I'm here with David Kirk. David, well, I can't turn it around. David, there's David, and we're here in his grow space, which is his bedroom. So this is like very informational for everybody who loves orchids and wants to grow them in your home, in your bedroom. So this is a good video for you. So let me turn this off and I'll turn it around and we'll show you some orchids. All right, so I'm back and we are here with David and we're just gonna let David talk about his orchids. First, I'm gonna say that I met David in the Illinois Orchid Society and I really didn't realize that he grew in his bedroom, but I'm just gonna let David tell us how he got started in orchids and what your favorite genuses are, and then we can go through some of your collection. Okay?
Yeah.
So how about that, Dave?
Ready, set, go. So I actually got interested in orchids kind of accidentally. You know, I was in the bonsai club when I was in high school.
Oh, okay.
15 years ago in Rockford, when it still only had something like 9 members.
Right.
And we met in the back room of a little nursery in Rockford.
Okay.
And they did a bonsai show that at the time was held in conjunction with the Black Hawk Orchid Society's Orchid Show. I didn't know that when I showed up at the little show that we had. It was 4 tables of bonsai trees. But the thing that I noticed that really hit me when I walked into that room was the smell. It was a very powerful Cattleya fragrance, and this was October.
Okay.
So, you know, I guess there are a lot of fragrant fall blooming Cattleyas, but it hit me from 80 feet away.
Mm-hmm. And you were hooked. Sounds like.
Well, there weren't that many displays, but it was just so much. Little floor displays.
Right. Intoxicating. Sounds like.
Yeah, and that fragrance, and then of course, our dear friend, Bill.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Gave his talk on Cattleyas.
Oh, right.
And that was the second time I had ever smelled that same fragrance and had that experience of it hitting me from so far away.
Okay.
And those were different Cattleya species. I think what I was smelling in Rockford were probably hybrids.
Oh yeah, Bills were all species.
Yeah,
amazing, amazing.
Mostly Ludomanianas,
Mm-hmm.
and a few one Schroederia in the corner.
Right.
But
and all those mounted Aclandias.
that people were oogling over. But
yeah.
What was really great, not to make this all about him, but what was really fun about that was to see the different color forms.
Oh yeah, it was amazing how they were just one by one by one. You could just go down the line and see the differences. That was the most informative Cattleya talk.
For sure.
It really was.
So getting back to that experience more than 10 years ago, they had their little floor displays, they had their little, variety, a good variety, a mix of genera, but they also had a pamphlet for Oak Hill Gardens, a little pamphlet catalog. Okay. And that, honestly, and the cover, now I know what it was, but the cover had a big Psychopsis on it.
Okay.
And I was like, what the heck is this? And of course, lots of other little orchid flowers too. And I'm like, I think the first time I had heard the word orchid, maybe it wasn't the first time, but the only time I really remember was out of that Nirvana song, and I didn't really know what an orchid was. And it was like, seeing what they were, and it's almost like it defied definition because they're all so different. And when I'm talking to new growers, that's one thing I really try to hammer home is that, it's an entire family of plants. Apples are in the rose family. That's how distant some of these relationships can be.
Yeah.
And you can see that bearing out in my collection here.
Yeah. So tell me about what do you grow? Do you grow everything? What do you concentrate on? What works best for? Why don't you first start out with your setup before we get into that?
Well, you mentioned
that sort of explains a lot.
You mentioned beans of rose that I grow in my bedroom, and of course, I think a lot of people are kind of curious because I tend to get a lot of enjoyment out of physically large plants, just anything that I imagine setting on the table and people just sort of going, is the table bending? What's going to happen? You know, it's I don't know why I get a kick out of that, but to me it's a bit like having a pet dragon or like, you know, this creature and everyone's just looking at it kind of nervously.
Gawking, yeah.
You know, and that's also...
That is kind of how orchids are. They are kind of intimidating in their beauty. You don't want to get too close.
Yeah, well, and sometimes stature like sobralias.
Yeah. I'm
not trying sobralias yet, but I know some members.
Wow.
Can I do a brief shout out to Ellen?
Yes. Go
that
ahead.
I've told her this before, that she doesn't know how cool she is. She is a member of our society too, and one time she hauled in on her little cart. Mind you, she's about chest high on me, you know, one Q-tip hair, not quite, but you know, very unassuming person on her own. But the plants she brings in are not, and she brought in this sobralia that was in, what was that, a 12-inch pot, something like that. It was huge. And short for a sobralia is 4 feet tall, and that's about what this one was.
Wow.
And she brought this in to be repotted, maybe divided, and we said, we don't think we can divide that, but we can take the kekies off for you. And she was like, sure. And so we were just handing kekies out.
Wow.
Because of course it was covered.
Yeah, right.
But anyway, you know, she doesn't know how cool she is. She brings in plants like that all the time.
Amazing.
And so, you know, I get a lot of enjoyment out of, you can see at the back, a larger Angrecum.
Oh yeah.
I can't take credit for flowering these. I bought them in bloom 2 weeks ago.
Right.
But this is that same species.
Yeah, the Viburnum. It's doing well.
Huge one. So I guess my interest really falls into two camps. I'm interested in the sort of Vanda adjacent, I would say the Angrecums, but also the reds, so like Renantheras.
Okay.
And Arachnanthe are really, really cool. Anything that looks like it might grow fangs, and you know.
Right. They are cool.
And then also I am doing, you know, some of the big Cattleya species, although that's a rabbit hole you can go down very fast and deep, and it is so much.
Yeah, I don't get into that rabbit hole.
So I'm trying to focus on just a couple species out of that genus. So I'm doing Ludimenianas, and so far it's been, a lot of people don't realize that not only do Cattleyas have color forms, but there's also different, I guess, not a different body plant, but an actual form where you can have a highland species that is a taller plant that also will have larger flowers. But then you can have a lowland form, which is a smaller plant, a shorter plant, somewhat smaller flowers, but usually they're a little darker.
Oh, okay. Wow.
And
so does that depend on the light or the just the conditions? Because I know sometimes when I grow Cattleyas, if I grow them in higher light, the bulbs are a little stunted, but they're fatter and they're healthier rather than...
According to breeders, they really are two different forms.
Okay.
And I'm getting that also from information from an AOS webinar. But
wow,
also,
that's complicated.
Also, you know, other growers that have talked about it, and because everyone says, well, how do you get a Ludimeniana that's got really big flowers in great form, but is nice and dark? And everyone thought, well, maybe they're taking the big flat highland ones and crossing them with the nice dark lowland ones. And the breeders are saying, no, actually we're not. You know, the highland forms have root varieties too.
Well, I bet that makes it tough for judging.
I let that be the judge's problem. and I think too, you know, when they're judging a species like that, I don't think they're saying, oh, we're only going to judge the lowland forms against lowland and highland against highland.
Right.
They're not doing that until they're separated into separate species, and fortunately they're not. You know, I don't think that's happening.
Okay. I always thought that they sort of had a picture of perfection in their mind when they judged, and then they sort of use that to compare.
I would say it's more like a trend line.
Okay.
Having spoken to some of our dear judge friends.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of where I got that from, but yeah, I'm sure.
I will say though, you know, and other people have said it, I don't say this necessarily as a point of criticism, but one thing about judging is that everything does sort of trend in the same direction, and it does still benefit the hobby growers, you do still end up with better flowers, but occasionally you can end up with something really unusual. And I think the judges do still allow for that too. Like something that will have very narrow petals, but a very unusual flower could still be noteworthy.
Interesting. So what's looking good right now in your collection? What are you most happy with? I know you are. What is your? I guess I'll stick with one question at a time. Why don't we talk about how your setup is, because we never really.
Oh yeah. Well, so back to me being relegated to the bedroom. I have.
You're relegated.
Well.
It works.
It's true. It's a positive and constraint that I live with other people, and it was agreed that maybe if I'm going to have a hobby that threatens to take over the apartment, I need to keep it in my space.
Right, and keep it in.
And keep it under control.
Yeah.
But so for anyone who's trying to grow in a compact area, if you think about someone who's got a greenhouse where it's all just one level, imagine each of these shelves just on one row side by side. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 shelves. This one's 4 foot, that one's 3. It's quite a broad space. I'm cheating because I just set that shelf up last night. But so it's out of necessity. But if you don't have space horizontally, you can go vertical.
Yeah,
just
vertical.
Like everything
Right.
I would say doing this, even though most of these are LEDs now, my biggest struggle is heat.
Okay.
I keep the door closed because there's a kitty here. And even though these are mostly LEDs, just the operation of the electronics, but then also when a photon hits a surface, it imparts a little bit of heat energy to it. There's just no escaping it. So even though LEDs are cool,
You still
get a lot of heat
heat
with 7 shelves.
Right. So what's your average temperature in here?
I try not to look. It's been up to 98.
Oh, really?
With a humidity of not much.
Well, okay. Well, it doesn't look like it's suffering from low humidity. I mean, I don't see any desiccation.
Well, I would say that.
That's what generally you would see.
And just to be totally honest, though, things come into my collection, and it's a learning curve. Some things come back out.
Well, right. That's how most people are. But I mean, just overall, looks like things are doing okay.
Yeah. No, they are. Some things doing much better than I would expect. Like if you see that, we were just talking about Cattleya luteminiana. That just bloomed for me in September, and in that same time, from then to now, it's set up a whole new growth and flower.
Wow, nice. Yeah, you can see it back there.
And that was having been repotted in between the two.
So that's great. That is great. You're blooming Cattleyas right after repotting them.
We'll see, though. I always tell everyone, whenever you get a new orchid, don't panic. It might take a year, maybe 2 off. Like especially with Phalaenopsis that you just got at one of our favorite big box stores.
Oh yeah, of course.
They've been forced to flower as hard as they can. It's going to take a break.
Oh yeah, they do take breaks. I actually just recently got an order from orchids.com, and it was an assortment of Phalaenopsis, and they say, and this is the first time I've actually seen them say this. They said when I opened it, they said don't water it. I mean, they said don't repot it for 6 months. Let it acclimate and
give it a break.
Yeah, and most people would immediately, repot their, unless they're in blooming.
For some people, that's a policy, and I understand too, because some people, they actually take it out of all media. They spray it down with
I know.
What is it? Peroxide, and do the whole thing.
And Phizan and all that. Yeah.
And just to keep bugs out of their collection.
Yeah.
But if you're like me, and when I see a mealybug, I spray it with alcohol.
Right.
No big deal. I'm not that afraid of mealies.
Right. Yeah, you're not like Bill Rogerson, who we were talking about. He won't even bring his plants hardly to the meeting or to shows, because he thinks they're going to get other people's bugs on them.
Well, so there is a caveat there too, that I'm not afraid of mealybugs, but one pest that I am really afraid of is spider mites.
Okay. Yeah.
Because to me, once they're in your collection, you never actually get rid of them. And this is why it's sort of important to find a group that can help inform you, or get resources however you can, because we were just talking, maybe we didn't touch on this yet, but one problem that orchids can have is virus. Insects are one of the primary vectors to transmit virus among orchids. Mealybugs don't transmit virus. Spider mites do.
Okay.
That's why I'm up in arms about spider mites, because if you have one plant that's virused, another plant that's got spider mites, and then other things in your collection that can't be replaced, well, it's sort of a ticking time bomb waiting for spider mites to chomp on the virus and then go get your prized plant. And, and there's no going back once a plant is virused.
That's true. Well, yeah, that's true. That is true. I mean, although, there's all kind of remedies on the internet for virused plants to reverse it. But I agree with you. Most people just throw them out.
Having spoken with people who specialize in the sort of named awarded varieties that are only in the private collections, they don't play that game.
Okay.
Because again, you might cure it, you might not, and it's just a matter of time before it spreads to everything else.
Yeah, and I've been lucky because I share my water and all that, and when something perishes out, I cut it to see, and it's always okay. So I don't.
Yeah, well, and
but it's just me. I wouldn't advise. It's just me.
I don't want to make it sound like it's this great plague and you need to panic. Don't panic.
Well, but it is something to be concerned about, and that you have to keep in the back of your mind.
Yeah, don't fret over it. And the other thing too is, the unfortunate things in life do happen. We're dealing with it right now. I know everyone's tired of hearing about this, but it happens,
it's a fact.
You deal with it. I had quite a fat chunk of change that I dropped on plants all at once, just to take them home.
I saw this yesterday. You can go ahead, keep talking.
And I cut the rhizome, and they all had a purple ring.
Oh no! Oh, I remember you telling me about that.
Yeah, you probably saw all over social media. I was devastated.
Yes.
And it's fine. You deal with it. But you'll notice I have some plants that are sort of separated, and I've got my kitchen window or plants that I think
might be virus.
may have, or if not virus, some spider mites on them. And I'm keeping everything under control.
So how are you? I mean, I see that you've got ventilation, because isn't that the culprit? The primary culprit, is it heat and no ventilation, stagnant air, and no moving air for mites?
Probably stagnant air, but also low humidity, which is
okay.
I have done everything I can. I've measured it so many times. I don't know if it's just the heat. I can't keep the humidity up under these.
I see.
So I've got to compensate with just attentive watering.
Okay.
And so far.
And so that's kind of. Do you have like a little bit of them soaking on a little bit of for extra humidity, and I see you have them in buckets. I was just, honestly, or are these just so you don't have them?
This is so that I can. So I don't water in place. That's my
right. So that's so you can move them.
It's so that I can transport them.
Okay, but you understand what I was saying. So you add like it could be used like to. So
it's a humidity tray.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't use humidity trays just because I'm so afraid of shared water and splashing.
Right. I understand.
But a lot of these are in. It's been a progression. I'm back to using mostly normal mix, media mix, where it's bark with a little bit of moss and whatever else. Honestly, the two most important parts, in my opinion, are just bark and moss, something that drains, something that retains.
Right.
But most of what's on this shorter shelf is in semi-hydro, and today's watering day, so they're all going to be bone dry when you look at them.
All right. So I had no idea. So these are all in semi-hydro, so that explains.
Most of them. This one is in a mix of moss and perlite.
Okay.
And it liked that, so it's ending up in the gross. That's fine. But this was one solution I was trying to work with. Semi-hydro, you can keep sometimes a large reservoir of water to keep the plant hydrated and also help with a little bit of ambient humidity.
Right.
And it's worked out. It's worked out. I have this one is a Phalaenopsis, and it's looking a little bit sorry, but it's actually kind of a miracle story. It's got 4 apexes of growth now, which, when a Phalaenopsis sends out a pup, a basal keiki, usually that's a sign that the plant is going to die. But it sent its first one out over a year ago. Oh. And the initial crown is still going.
Oh, that's good.
Now,
which plant is that?
It's a no ID.
Oh, okay.
But it's a mini Phalaenopsis.
Right.
It sent out a new buds, and then I don't know if it was just a lapse in my watering, probably that, or something else that it didn't like, because sometimes, you know, you get a little bit of rotting algae in the bottom of it.
Yeah.
It can make it a little sour.
Mm-hmm.
So it actually lost every single leaf.
Wow.
On all 4 of its apexes, and they've all come back. And that's, I can't take full, there's something genetically with this plant where it wants to live, and it's just, it's doing what it's going to do.
Well, it looks like it's going in the right direction.
I'm perfectly happy if that never flowers. That's just a fun little project.
Yeah. I have a few of those little Phalaenopsis where I've like pulled off pups off, you know, kikis off of, you know, and just plucked them somewhere just to see what they do.
So, you know, everyone thinks though, they hear that story about the basil keikis and they say, oh, that means the mother plant's going to die and you can pick it up. Not always.
Yeah.
Sometimes, if it's a plant that you're not, you know, so attached to that you must rescue the side piece, consider leaving it and see what it does, because it may just become a larger plant.
Yeah, that's what I tend to do.
This is a similar story here. This is a cross of Vanda falcata, now it used to be Neophanacia, and Rimanthera, I think Imshudiana.
Okay.
And it initially was this one initial growth, and now you can see it's got 3 new growths.
Yeah.
And even if it never, this used to flower 4 times a year for me too. Even if it never flowers again, I think this is just such a neat experience to have.
It is. It's a nice growth pattern. And I mean, it looks happy. I mean, it may not bloom, but it's happy.
Yeah. So, what else do we have that's neat? A lot of stuff. I've had a lot more luck flowering this year. Only a small percent of mine each year flower, but my goal is for the first. I told myself when I first started, I'm going to try to spend the first 10 years getting really good vegetative growth. And after that, I'll worry about flowering.
Okay.
But this year, I've done a lot better. I think it really was just a water problem for me.
So you water with, you use pure water, of course, I'm sure. Or do you use just tap water?
Tap water?
Okay.
So this is why everything is in a bin. I walk all of these to my kitchen sink and just water them under the faucet.
Okay.
But for me, it's that experience of at least once a week picking everything up, looking at it on all sides while I'm watering it. Hey, is there a big chunk of mealybugs on this? What's going on?
Right.
Do I see anything suspicious? Is it in spike? What's happening?
Right. Yeah, you need that.
Yeah. Well, and
you're supposed. That's what a good orchid grower does.
Well,
especially
unless you got a really good green.
Well, no, I don't do that as much as I should. I mean, I should be doing that now. I should be at home now doing that because I haven't been there since Thursday.
Well,
but it is good to get your hands on them to see what's going on every so often. Yeah, you have to.
But sometimes too, newer growers can sort of kill them with kindness and say, "Oh, it looks dry." Well, maybe it's fine.
Yeah, you have to have a little benign neglect, but it is good to pick them up on schedule and look at them.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially if you've been dealing with those kind of issues all along. You have to stay on top of it.
Yeah.
You really do.
For sure.
So
we can touch on another little success story here.
Okay.
So again, an example of a plant that looks not so hot, but is actually, in my opinion, doing extremely well. You see all of my
oh yeah, look at those roots when you turn it around.
Baked to a lovely golden brown.
I have plenty of plants like that where the back is dying off.
Does it have dandruff? Maybe we can see. Nice.
Or those old sheaths.
Set to 375 for 30 minutes, and you get that result.
Right.
So this is another Ludemaniana that is, species cats, famously picky. But now that I have new roots, it's like that means I know for sure this plant is going to make it. I can put my little wad of moss near them. I can water that specific set of roots more attentively because this came to me bare root.
Right.
And I think, the roots that it had didn't die right away, but it really only took off once it had
new
roots. And you can
yeah.
see, a few newer growths that are all doing really well. And you can tell because they're staying hydrated.
And they're growing up right. They're not really
Yeah.
you know, desiccated and
So,
wrinkly. So
time will
yeah,
tell if I flower that one.
yeah. Good way to be. I mean, it's a good way to, because most people would not like that, you know. But you have to realize when it's doing better, and you have to not pay so much, not be so anal or upset about the way the plant looks.
Well, and knowing that this genus of plant, you can have
Right,
some dieback.
right.
but
You have to know
once-
your plants. Yeah.
Once the new, that initial new growth sort of anchors, and you've got those new roots.
Yeah, it is anchoring because it's almost, it's in the pot.
Yeah, then it's
Yeah, you know you're good.
you know you're okay.
Especially when it's came to bare root.
Yeah.
Those are the hardest to get established.
Um,
So yeah, great. Well, do you have any other things to show me?
one other real quick.
I want to tell you a story why I'm kind of just. I mean, there's many shootings in Chicago. This is completely off topic, but I am staying in a place last night, and it was like 3 in the morning, and I literally heard about 30 gunshots right outside.
No.
Yeah, and you know, and then all of the police coming up too. So this morning, as I'm jogging, I'm walking out to the treadmill, and literally right below the window is the police scene. Yeah. Isn't that crazy? So I am like ready to get the heck out of Chicago for a minute.
Fortunately, up here we're okay.
You are safe. Yes, you are
But
safe.
It, you know, I want to say it might have been last year. We did have a couple incidents. I don't pay it too much.
Oh, nice seed pod.
Yeah, that's my baby right now. I don't know if you want to pull it up.
Oh, so you did do a cross, right?
Oh, I have tried so many crosses.
I mean, I know you
tried so
saw him
many.
on Facebook. I see you, you know.
So from that most recent post, this is one of those.
Oh, okay.
And it wasn't one of the crosses that I was hoping would take, but it's the only one that did. And you know, that's it's a gamble, especially when my plants are sort of in the shape that they're in. Maybe it would be good for people to see too that, you know, some of the discoloration on these it's fine, right?
Right.
This isn't actually rot. I think this is
It looks like a little blush, like
it's
little sunburn.
It's just really, really bright.
Mm-hmm.
And my pot is a lovely anthocyanin beige or purple here. We'll see how it turns out. But I started this. I set this. I think I want to say that was September. So it would be due in March.
Okay. That's when you're expecting it.
Yeah. So, you know.
So what are you gonna do? Are you gonna?
I'm
Oh,
gonna
I guess
send
you
it
can.
out.
Bill can do that, can he? Or are you gonna send it to somebody else?
I am going to send this one out. No shade on Bill, but I am going to send this to someone who's good with dry
Okay.
pod culture, because I'm going to let this one go all the way. And I had one other, actually with this same plant as the pollen parent from a year ago, and it exactly what we see here on this was
Nice.
the pod parent, I guess we would say.
Nice.
But I you know, cut it off, put it in a little brown lunch bag, and promptly forgot about it.
Oh no. Oh no.
Never sent it out.
Oh no.
And found it in my kitchen about 3 months later, and I thought, oh, well, it's probably too late now.
Oh, there's like a pretty flower back there. That looks like a Laelia something.
So it's a Laeliorhynchos. I had to look it up. It's a Rhyncholaelia glauca crossed with Laelia anceps. And
Wow. Well, it looks like it would be. It looks very pretty.
it is. It does have a habit of drooping, and then you can see that it's very, very curled, which it does every time.
Yeah. Beautiful.
But that one pops maybe 4 times a year.
Wow.
If you're lucky, I get mine 2 to 3.
That's still good. That is still great. That is great. So what is your, I'm gonna end this because it's like 30 minutes. So what is your number one growing philosophy for like in the home?
I mean, honestly, don't be afraid to lose. Don't be discouraged, because I, for Lord knows I lost plants.
Oh yeah, we all do.
Eventually you'll get it. The other piece of advice I have too is try to clout. You learn so much from even just looking at what other people do.
Yeah, it is a good experience. Well, anyway, I want to thank Dave for letting me come into his home and into his bedroom to look at his collection. And I want to thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys soon. Enjoy your orchids. Bye.